Hey there, and welcome to the Shared Security Show. I'm Tom Eston, and I'm joined by my co hosts, Scott Wright and Kevin Johnson. Now, we know what you're thinking. A podcast about cybersecurity sounds about as exciting as watching paint dry. But fear not, dear listener, because we're here to make things a little more interesting. Now, each week on the Shared Security Show, we tackle the latest news and trends in the world of cybersecurity and bring you the information you need to stay safe online. But we do it with a dash of humor, a pinch of wit, and a whole lot of absurdity. So tune in each week and join us as we make the world of cybersecurity a little less boring and a lot more fun. And remember, even though we're not always serious, we always take your security seriously.
Wow. Did you just read that off the cuff?
I did not, Scott. That was actually created by a chatbot called ChatGPT.
That was awesome.
Who has made the news lately.
I agreed with everything it said except for the fact that cybersecurity is boring.
I agree.
Everything else, I'm like, yeah, we're awesome.
Yeah, the AI thinks it's boring.
Yeah, well, if you were an AI working as fast as an AI works, wouldn't you be bored by the weak human security issues?
Yes.
I, for one, respect and bow to our robot overlords. So when they take over, I'm good.
That's right. So that leads us into our first story, which is this thing called ChatGPT, which has kind of taken over the internet.
Yeah.
Hasn't it?
Yeah.
Gone viral.
I think here's what I think is so awesome and
what do you think?
why this has gone viral, for the lack of a better term. Because I actually think this is... Did we just lose Scott?
We just lost Scott. All right.
AI took him out.
Yeah.
So, here's why I think this has gone so widespread. I've been playing around with AI, ML, whatever, for a while now.
Yeah.
And I think this is the first time that it has been packaged in a way that is trivially easy, not only for people to interact with, but also for them to understand how they're interacting with it. Right?
Yeah.
Like, yes, we've done things like, okay, here's a mobile app that'll make your face look like a cartoon or something like that, and people interact with that. But while they would spread those pictures for a while, it would die down because they didn't know what to do next. With this having that chat interface where it's really conversational, whatever, it becomes easier for people to understand or think of the next thing they want to try, right? Now I'm old, and I immediately thank you. I immediately thought of Eliza. Do you remember? I think it was called Eliza. It was a chat psychotherapist that was. Oh man, I remember it back in the 80s, 90s.
Yeah. I think I know what you're talking about.
I'm looking it up. I'm actually looking up Eliza. According to Wikipedia, is an early natural language processing computer program created from 1964 to 1966 at MIT.
Wow.
Okay, so that blows my mind. I didn't realize it was that far long ago. When I was in school, in high school in the 80s, we played with, and it was just this, like, you would ask it a question, and it was stupid because all it would do is like, well, what do you think about that? And like it just very, very canned responses, right? That's what ChatGPT reminded me of. Except it was what we imagined Eliza would be, right? And so I think I've had a blast playing with it. I've been asking it questions.
I have too.
Just doing all this kind of stuff. As a matter of fact, and I'm going to throw one of my consultants under the bus here. Doug came to me a couple days ago, and he says, "Hey, I want to write an article for the blog that is about the ethics of using AI to write content and." Like, a lot of conversations about, the artwork, the text, the legitimacy of using these types of things. And what he said was, I want to write this article, and I'm going to have the ChatGPT write its version of the article, and then walk
Yeah.
through, right? Like basically asking AI about the ethics of using AI to write an article. And as we start digging into it, it became this like, and I know that we have two different articles about this. The worry about this replacing people, this about, we have a lot of things we do that you can just say, hey, ChatGPT, what should I do here? I actually wrote, that's not the right way to phrase it, but I'm not sure how to phrase it, right? I had the ChatGPT write code that was vulnerable to server-side template injection for an exercise I'm putting into one of our courses, right? And it wrote the code, and that code is not done. But it's a solid foundation for me to then build from for what I need.
Yeah, and I think that's really where we're going to start seeing things like ChatGPT being used. There's going to be a lot of startups. So I'll link in the show notes a great article by Daniel Miesler, who has a podcast on supervised learning. Great podcast, by the way. And I really liked his opinions about how there's going to be a whole new kind of startup ecosystem around this. And I think eventually the best AI is going to be the stuff that's going to be really expensive in the future, right? It's going to be an exclusive thing until it becomes a little more widespread. So I think it's fascinating.
I agree with that. I think he brings up a point toward the end that is critical. I think that you're going to have two different types of people working with AI. The people, and I'm talking about good at working with AI, right? So you're going to have the people who, they may not understand how the underlying training happens and all that kind of stuff, but they will have an expertise in how to interact with it. What is because like we see it, right? You ask a question, it gives you an answer, you write a slightly different version of the question, and you get a better or worse answer, right? So people who have an expertise in how do I interact with it, right? How do I get the best results will have a place. Yeah. And the people who understand how to do that type of the training and how do you collect the data, how do you do this kind of stuff. The what we consider an AI expert today will continue to be critical. That's how he actually closes out the article with that, and I think he's dead on. But I think that the interesting one that I hadn't actually thought of, but it's so obvious after you read it, is the people who have an expertise in how to interact with it, right? Like, look, I don't know what it's doing under the covers, but damn it, if I ask this, I get good stuff back, right?
Yeah.
It's like in the early days. Can you guys hear me okay? Sorry, I had to drop off for a second.
You sound like you're in a...
Sorry. It wouldn't let me change my mic settings in the middle of the recording, so apologize for that. But just a point is, it reminds me of the old days when libraries were the first people, the keepers of the queries of what's indexed, because they were the only people that indexed things. And so, the people who knew how to do good queries in the library systems got the best information fastest. And then eventually Google and everybody else did full text search easily. So it's going to evolve, right?
Yeah, it's cool stuff. So in our show notes, we'll have a bunch of links to some great articles, some that we've already mentioned, as well as some interesting things coming out that, people are now talking about. This could be another attack vector, right? Attacking the AI, the back-end engines, right? The stuff that's running these types of AI. So OpenAI might be the next big target, right? Today's podcast is brought to you by NordLayer. NordLayer safeguards your company's network, but it's much more than just a VPN for business. As you already know from our show, business networks today are more vulnerable than ever due to remote work, ransomware attacks, and data leak incidents. Well, NordLayer secures and protects remote workforces as well as business data and can even help you ensure security compliance. Simply go to nordlayer.com/sharedsecurity and get 1 month free. NordLayer is easy to start as it takes less than 10 minutes to onboard your entire business on a secure network. NordLayer is easy to combine as it's hardware-free and compatible with all major operating systems. And finally, NordLayer is easy to scale as you can choose a plan unique to your business requirements and your rate of growth. If you want to secure your business network, go to nordlayer.com/shared security to get your first month free. So Scott, why don't we jump into our favorite segment, which is Aware Much.
Aware Much. Yeah, so once again, our friends at LastPass are in the news for a breach of their password manager. But it's not necessarily terrible news. I mean, they were relatively forthcoming and transparent about the fact that it happened. We don't get a lot of data on what actually happened yet, and don't know how much there is available. But all this to say, I think we all respect how much they've done in the industry to educate and make it safer for people to store passwords. So I think the point here is that their architecture is secure enough to withstand most attacks like this because things are encrypted from the user side and they don't get to see it. But what do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is like the third strike on LastPass. So a lot of, people in the industry are, kind of condemning LastPass for like, oh, yet another issue. But I kind of go back to that, this is hard, right? Like it, I didn't want to necessarily fault them, right? Like any company can get breached, whether or not you're a password manager or not. And I've always said that I thought LastPass handled this incident. They did a full disclosure on it. They provided information. They're providing updates. It's not like they're ignoring the problem. So, that's just my thought on it.
Yeah, I agree with you. Anybody can get hacked, right? Like anybody, this can happen to everybody. Yeah. And we know that the larger the system becomes, the bigger, the more complex, the more popular, the more targeted it is, and the more difficult it is to keep people out, right? Bad actors, malicious insiders, what have you. And we don't know exactly what happened. Now, the part that I find interesting is the claim, and I call it that just because we don't know enough details, that the attacker used information they got that was released in the August breach. And my question about that, and that's why I'm hesitant to, normally I don't like victim blaming. I don't like saying the company sucks. And I want to be very clear, I am a user of LastPass. Our company here has standardized on it as our password manager. But the thing I'm concerned about is the information that was released in August that enabled the attacker to get in now. Was it stuff LastPass should have fixed? Or was it just, hey, now that we know a little bit more about the technology, the attacker was able to leverage that? If it's the second one, then I'm not concerned. If it's the first one, right, like, oh, hey, we found out that the first attacker got in this way, and LastPass didn't fix this way, that's really bad. I don't think that's what it is, but that's my only hesitation in saying, man, this sucks for them. You know what I mean? Like that. I personally think I'd like to hear more. I would like them to be as transparent as possible. I believe, what is it, Kirchhoff's principle with encryption, right? That the more open you are, the more secure you are. I know that I will hear arguments from people that will say, but Kevin, why should they be more open if the information that was revealed in August enabled this attack? If they're more open now, it'll just enable the March attack or whatever, right? And my answer is, yeah, it might. But if you are asking your customers to trust you with the level of sensitivity that LastPass is asking their customers, they should at least respect us enough to give us the information about what happened. You see what I mean? Like that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You want me to trust you, and I do. Obviously, I do. I pay you every month. I'm using your service. I've not made plans to move to something else. But return that trust, respect that trust by giving us the information that we need. That's what I believe. But of course, I'd like to believe that we showed that when Security has had the problem with the training account, right? Where our training provider was compromised. Yeah. We lived what we said, and we gave out every bit of information we knew, right? I'd like to see that from everybody, but especially a company like LastPass that they are security, right? Like I'm not seeing that, and that bothers me.
Yep. So I guess the tip this week from ClickArmor is, despite this kind of event, there's no evidence yet that LastPass is any weaker for general use of password storage. So I think we can say it's less risky if you use something like LastPass that is proven and well known in the industry to manage your passwords. So, this episode was brought to you by ClickArmor, the more engaging, fun, and effective way to educate employees on cybersecurity awareness. And just visit our website at clickarmor.ca, and you'll learn how you can get employees to spot risks and threats as they would in the real world in a more fun and engaging way.
So our last story this week is about Apple. And they have 3 new advanced security features to protect user data. So the iMessage contact key verification, which allows users to verify they are only communicated with the intended recipient. They now have security keys for Apple ID, which allows users to use a physical security key, like a YubiKey or some other physical key with their account. And now they're going to be enabling advanced data protection for iCloud, which now offers end-to-end encryption. And the bigger news is that iCloud backups are going to be encrypted as well. And that is actually a long time coming because there's been a lot of controversy over the years, especially with certain government agencies wanting to get access to people's iCloud backups, right? Yeah. And Apple has pushed back on that over the years. So it is now another layer. So I think this is great. I think the more security that Apple can put in, within reason, of course, is very helpful.
Yep.
I do have a side story that I'd like to share about Apple. And I am not really an Apple fan right now because of this story, but long story short, one of my kids got their phone ran over, not once, but twice by a car. They were crossing the streets. The phone dropped into the street, didn't realize it was in the street, turned around, and it was obliterated. What's interesting is my child had forgotten their iCloud password and didn't put it in their password manager like the good dad Tom has always educated his children on. Apple, so she tried multiple times with incorrect password and ended up locking the account out. And Apple came back and said that she can't access her iCloud account for 13 days. 13-day lockouts, apparently. And I even had her call Apple support to see if there's anything that they could do to expedite that. And they said, no, there's nothing we can do. Apple takes anything like that very seriously, considering that it's like, to them, if it looks like a hacking attempt, right? Someone's trying to break into your account. So for your own protection, they have this window of time that you have to wait for. And apparently, according to this Apple support person, it's not unheard of for people to have their accounts locked out for 2 months.
Yeah, I've heard the same thing.
Have you guys heard of that?
Yeah, back when I was very much in the Apple ecosystem, I had, not myself or my family, but I worked with people who had dealt with that, and it's always blown me away that Apple. I totally get Apple's stance, but what I don't understand is that they don't have a verification process that short circuits it. Like, yes, this looks like hacking. Block me for 2 months, block me for 10 years, whatever. But give me the ability to provide you some type of verification. Here's my ID. I don't know what the process.
Yeah, identity proofing.
But I know that. Yeah. I mean, let's talk about my favorite agency in the world, TSA. Right. TSA, who is useless, and what have you, right? Thousands standing around. But if you lose your ID and you go to the TSA agent, they have a process for you to verify yourself so you can board your flight, right? If TSA, an organization that can't find their ass from a hole in the ground, can figure out a way to short circuit in a quote unquote secure mechanism, Apple can't.
Yeah.
Right? Like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It has always blown my mind that they can't do it. I'm happy to say I've never been impacted by it. I feel bad.
Yeah. So my advice for people, and the lesson learned here, and something that I didn't have set up, especially you can do this with the family settings, the family sharing settings within iCloud, is set a recovery contact so that a trusted family member or friend can be that person to verify you through, I think it's like a 2-factor auth code or something like that. And that is kind of another layer that you can use to help recover your account if you don't have forgotten your password or something like that.
What we've done in my family, because we do have some carryover Apple accounts, things like that. What we've done is, like, my wife's iCloud account password, she has entered into my LastPass vault. Right.
Yeah.
And yes, I have access. I can look at it.
You can have, Kevin, is that shared folders? Or
No. In this case, she's actually, in our case, she actually came to my computer and entered it in as an entry that I have.
Because
Right.
Yeah.
That way,
because you can do shared folders in LastPass as well. You can create a set of credentials that are shared between 2 LastPass users.
Yeah,
so
we use shared
it.
credentials all the time. In this case, we didn't use that, and I don't remember our reasoning. We had a reason for it, but it was probably dumb because it was my idea. But we chose not to use the shared folders for some reason. But yeah, and it's a
good tip though, Tom.
Yeah, definitely. All right, guys. Well, I think that's all we have time for today. One last thing, I did want to let all of our listeners know that we have hit 800 subscribers on our YouTube channel. So that is quite the milestone. We're only a couple hundred away from the elusive 1,000. Yes. So if you have not subscribed to our YouTube channel, please do. We would much appreciate it, and it would inch us a little bit closer to the great 1,000 mark. All right. Well, thank you, Scott. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, OpenAI for the ChatGPT for that great intro. Much appreciated. And we'll catch everyone again next week.
Enjoy.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, hit that like and subscribe button. To catch all the latest from the show, visit our website, sharedsecurity.net. Follow us on Twitter at SharedSec, and join our Reddit community on the Shared Security Show subreddit.